Hello and good morning.
Good morning.
We are discussing a topic that's actually perfectly timed because obviously the clock's going back, the lighter evenings. This is a perfect topic for the weekend. So this is spring gardening, bloom and grow with plants. You've maybe got plans for your garden, plants and prettiness, of course. So spring really is the time to start falling back in love with your outdoor space, whether it be a garden, a balcony, a courtyard, whatever the outdoor space may be. Um, as old favourite plants kind of peep out of the soil and blossom trees bud and bulbs begin to flower again, your kind of spirits rise along with that. It definitely does make a difference. And I was just saying that with a client yesterday. Her garden was looking beautiful in St Andrews, especially sitting in the sun. It was just stunning. So whether it be you're improving your forever home or seeking inspiration to add thousands to your sale price, perhaps, March and April are a gardener's treat. From choosing plants and sowing seeds to planting window boxes or in bloom bulbs and kind of adding those splashes of spring colour because we speak about it internally, but actually take that externally as well. And it really is a delight in the crisper, brighter days, especially after the doom and gloom of winter. Um, Even if you think you're not green fingered, like myself,
This is my topic.
this is your favourite topic, and I'm just going to be on the sidelines here because I am definitely not green fingered. But I can
Oh, you
appreciate
don't need
it.
to be green fingered though to have nice colour in your garden.
Exactly, yes. And you can still appreciate it because spring gardening can be surprisingly easy, enjoyable, and enriching as well to be outside and just
Mhm.
be out with nature and enjoying the blue skies, feeling that sun hitting your face. So we're going to go through with obviously with today's show, and we're going to give you hints and tips and talk to you of different ways that you can potentially add spring floral boosts,
Mhm.
sowing and growing, add in those kind of zings to different zones of your garden. Also about wildlife as well. That is a key part of this. Is it's not just about adding the color and adding the blooms and the plants, but also considering the wildlife.
Mhm.
And also, as I say, blooming boxes and baskets. It's really about maximizing all of the outdoor space. So we're going to go through the different kind of hints and tips, and we're going to break these jobs down into manageable but also pleasurable chunks that will bring you as well little rewards at kind of every single stage. And then as a result, you'll have this blooming spring garden to either savor for yourself, enjoy with family or friends,
Yeah.
or even captivate those buyers. So, as we've said, this is your favorite topic, Perry. So, let's get stuck in and you can kick us off with the first kind of topic.
Yeah, so we're going to be looking at floral sprint boosts. And actually, I have to admit this after talking about being green fingered, but I think we've all done it. We're in the winter months, and it's the last thing on our mind is the garden. So we can kind of fall behind a little bit, and we might have great plans to kind of plant those spring bulbs, or and just forget to do it, or before we know it, we're into April, aren't we? And it's just not been done. But there's
Yeah.
great ways to make that colour still happen in your garden. So if you've not planted spring bulbs in late autumn, like I didn't, you can still add colourful seasonal prettiness. And the way you would do that is basically go and buy the ready-made ones. We buy ready-made everywhere else in our lives, so why can't we do it for our gardens?
Very true, actually. Absolutely.
Exactly. So there's lots that you can do, from daffodils to primroses to cowslips to crocuses, and they're all beautiful colours. You can get them from the supermarkets. You can go down to B&M's actually. I think a lot of people forget that B&M's have got a really big garden section. So I've actually bought quite a few there, and I did buy my primroses from there this year because I didn't plant them. But there's swift ways to get your garden to glow and get some lovely colour in there. So that's a real easy way to do it. Even if you didn't grow them from seed yourself, it doesn't matter. You've still got the prettiness. Having
Exactly.
said that, I did do some seeding, but we'll talk about that later. It didn't go well.
At least you can say you
um,
tried.
I did try, absolutely. But that can definitely give you a real good, quick, easy boost. I did it myself last weekend because it just started feeling nicer. We've had such warm weather, haven't we? And all my baskets were just empty. There was nothing in them. So I went down and got some primroses, and I've put them in little hanging baskets along the fences and things like that. And it just gives you such a pop of colour. We've got them going up the driveway. So it's really nice when I come home at the end of the day, just driving up the driveway and the sun's been shining. You get all these pops of pinks and yellows and reds. It's lovely. And it was quite easy to do and not expensive either. So you get like 3 for £6. So you can't grumble at that.
Absolutely.
Really easy to do. So you can do it that way as a little cheat. You can pop flower bulbs. If you've done that already, then great. But if you've not, there's things like forget-me-nots that you can get just now. Again, all of the supermarkets and gardening stores have got those just now. Really nice and easy to do. You can put them on window ledges. So again, they're a nice manageable size. So again, if you've not got maybe a big garden area, but you still want to see the colour, you've got window ledges. You've maybe got a little courtyard, as you said earlier, Sophie. They've maybe got a nice balcony. You can hang little pots on those. The pots I got were the lovely grey rattan ones, and believe it or not, got them in Aldi's. Hang on the fence, £3.99.
Brilliant.
You can't complain. And they're really nice things to kind of brighten up a fence or a balcony, or maybe even just beside your gates or something like that. Just a wee entrance part if that's all you have. Nice little courtyards. Nice garden seating is good as well. So again, if you've got lovely garden seating, it's nice to put a kind of spring bunny vibe around there. So I've got some nice pillows that I put out. Today is beautiful and sunny. That's what I'll be doing later on. And again, it just gives you that little boost. And these are things you've probably got in your shed, if you've got a shed, your garage, whichever, if you've been storing over the winter months. So a nice way to do that. But there's a certain way to do the clusters as well, and I've actually done it that way. General rule of thumb for prettiness, you can do it your own way, is to do things in 3s, 5s, or 7s.
Oh, okay.
It just looks nicer. So along the fence, I've got 3. Along my other fence, I've got 5. And when I do my pots, I usually put them in clusters of 3s. Because if you just put one little lonely one there, it looks kind of all sad and alone. So if you multiply the pots up, it just gives you a boost in a group of prettiness. So that's something to think about.
It's a wee top tip. Okay.
What I also did this weekend is I have a conifer that's in a pot. We always talk about line of sight when we're in the houses as well, about indoors, outdoors, don't we? And we talk about kind of keeping the windows clear so you can see out into the gardens. So when I'm in my lounge and I walk into the kitchen, it goes straight across into the patio, so you can see straight outside. And on my deck, I've got a pot that I've had there since I moved in 4 years. And it's got in it. And it's always looked quite boring, although it's quite nice. But I was in B&M's and I saw solar lights, little string ones that you would put in your Christmas tree. And I basically wrapped it around that tree on a Sunday. And see now when I go to my kitchen in the evening at night, so about 9 o'clock, it's lit up outside and it's just so lovely. So it's a little thing that just, again, brings additional lightness. So it's not just about flowers, etc. There's other ways that you can brighten up a garden area. So
absolutely. And as you said, that's something you already had. And you were able to add something that was inexpensive as well to it, so it doesn't need to be expensive.
Yeah, £6 lights were, I think. So quite easy and cheap to do. Talking of which, I mean, little dwarf trees are nice as well. Fruit trees, little plum ones, apple ones. They're lovely and ready to bud just now as well. They almost look like cherry blossoms. So they're quite nice as well if you've got those. And again, you can buy them in all the garden stores. Put them in a nice wee corner in your garden. The lovely flowers are coming in eventually. The fruits will come as well. So that's quite a nice visual as well, something to think about. It gives a bit of a kind of culinary passion thought of what you can maybe make in the autumn with all the nice apples or plums or whatever it is you decided that you wanted to grow. You can plant them in the ground and in pots. So it doesn't necessarily mean that because you don't have ground and maybe you have a patio, you can do it that way as well. Just nurture them like a parent does a child in their first few years, and they'll grow and they'll look nice. Talking of which, you can actually also plant tomatoes, doesn't need to be flowers, and potatoes. So they'll not necessarily give you colour, but they will give you lots of green. So again, you could get a nice pot, put holes in the bottom, put your potato seedlings in the bottom and just water them and watch them grow. Practical as well. So you're getting all that lovely greenness, but you're also going to get some nice salad potatoes for when the summer comes, or winter potatoes when you want to do baked potatoes and chips and things. So that's a nice little tip. And think of your floral boost. Yeah, think of your floral boost as a way to quickly colour your garden. Makes it instantly more inviting as well. So again, Many people that we speak to, Sophie, when we're out say, I'm kind of thinking I should wait till spring because my garden looks so much nicer. I'm kind of waiting until I go to the summer because my garden looks so much nicer. But there are ways to make that instant impact. So if you are thinking of selling, and I don't know about you, Sophie, but when I'm going out to value properties at the moment, quite a few of my clients are saying to me, oh, just ignore the garden. It's not at its best at the moment. Because everyone's just come out of winter, haven't they?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. But there is quick wins that you can do to make it make such a difference. Even as you say, just take a weekend and you can make a big difference in a weekend just with some quick wins. But no, I'm
Yeah, and I
certainly
think
hearing
as well,
that a lot.
if you take that little bit of time and you see that colour, it's almost inviting those warmer days to come along. And I think for yourself, it's a kind of instant booster, isn't it?
Absolutely. Because as well, it's what you're seeing, but actually as well, it's the smells of it as well. Because again, we always say people buy into emotions and we use all of our senses, not just what we see. So if we can smell, obviously the blooms, that makes a difference as well.
It really does. I was at a client's yesterday, and in their sitting room, they had vases and they had lilies in them. And lilies are my favourite thing, but I can't have them in the house because the pollen just totally activates Billy's hay fever. So we just don't have them in the house. Literally, instantly, he walks in the door, he knows that they're. But it was so nice when you talk about the senses. I walked into the room and it just took me back to when I used to have them in the house, and I just loved that smell. So it does impact you. And again, think about that as well. If you've grown your own, snipping them and putting them in the house, it's such a nice way to do it as well. And when you have got your property potential in the market, if that's what you're listening to this for, people coming in are going to get that positive emotion from that lovely smell that you've created. And it's even nicer if you say that you've grown them in your own garden, because again, that's what people are looking for. They've come to that particular house because the garden area, and that's obviously something that they need in their lives. So it's good to be able to promote that as well, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
So what else can people do if they have been organised, Sophie?
Okay. So if you have been organised, there is sowing and growing that you could, potentially be doing. So early spring really is the perfect time to sow and grow your own flowers and veggies. But if you're a beginner, start with the easier to grow varieties. I might take some tips from this myself. Some will flower and crop in just 8 to 12 weeks. So you've got things like poppies, you've got marigold, cosmos. Now I see the word cosmos and think of a cocktail, but we'll do it in, I think it's slightly different. And, they cover lightly, well watered, fine, composting pots, keep them bright, frost free until they're then big enough to add to the garden. So start in little manageable chunks, and then you'll be able to obviously develop them.
Yeah, this is where I failed. This is where I failed, Sophie.
Okay.
So I did sow mine. I sowed mine mid-February, and then I got ahead of the game. That was me being impatient because last week's weather was just so beautiful, wasn't it? And I've been sowing them indoors, which is what you're supposed to do, and you're meant to acclimatise them to outdoors. But because it was so warm, I thought, oh, it's lovely. So I've got a nice kind of seating area at the bottom of the garden, and it's all enclosed. So I thought I'll just put them on that seat because the sun was beating down. I thought that would be really great for them. I came home at the end of the day and they were all dead. I just exposed them to too much heat. So it was too much for them, and the trays dried up too quickly. Even though there was lots of condensation in the lid, the trays just dried up too quickly. And actually, when I brought them indoors again and I took the lids off, all my lovely buds were just boom. So I've had to start again. So where those ones, probably I could have planted those outside maybe mid-May. I'm probably not going to be planting now till mid-June. But I'll still have long colour through summer and autumn. But yeah, if you're going to do the sowing, you have to grow your patience as well as growing the seeds. I just got a bit excited.
Grow your patience. I love that. Yes, definitely. And then something else, and you've already touched on it, Perrie, is it doesn't just need to be plants. You can do things like your fruit and vegetables. So think about tomatoes, lettuce, rocket, spinach, also Swiss chard as well, if you want to be really adventurous. Among the easiest and most rewarding vegetables to grow from seed. But don't forget to label the pots, as all those tiny little wee seedlings look very similar. Obviously, when they do grow, you'll be able to differentiate them. But while they're going through that kind of growing stage, just make sure they're labeled to keep it more manageable for you. Now, something as well that would be good for this is if you're watching this, is this can be something you could also be doing. See if you've got little ones, get them involved, get them in the garden, get them outside, get them in the fresh air, get them enjoying, getting them to start getting used to, okay, this is an activity that we could be doing one as a family, and then they could then develop it and take it on into their later life. Because I know I'm not a gardener, like neither of my parents, so that's probably because I would have never been in the garden doing things like this. So potentially it's something to get the children involved with. It's, again, it can be then inexpensive. You don't need to be taking them out anywhere. Just get them in the garden, or if you've even got like a shared courtyard area, just utilize the outdoor space and get the wee ones involved and make it a bit of fun as well.
That's a really good tip, actually, Sophie, and it is a real good way of getting the kids outside and away from their tablets for a little while, and just interaction, but also special time. And you're teaching them not only how to potentially grow something, but you're teaching them different life skills as well, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. Make them responsible for it. Give them, that's theirs, and make them responsible. You need to make sure that you're watering it. Keep a lookout after it. It's definitely transferable skills. Yes.
Caring and sharing.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So that is definitely something. But if you're sitting here and you're thinking you've got no time to grow from seed, as we've mentioned, you can buy baby kind of annual veg or even flowers to nurture inside your home until they're sturdy enough to go outdoors. As Perrie said, key there is grow your patience well. So until they're sturdy enough to go outdoors, a true grow your own shortcut. Now, the key ingredients for baby plants is, as you've touched on, Perrie, is light, temperature, and water. So you need to have that bright daylight, but no direct sun, no frost, and don't also overwater it. Don't get carried away, because the last thing that you want is rotting roots, because they actually kill more plants than dehydration. So in this case, less is definitely more.
Agreed.
So bear that in mind.
It's a top tip, and I don't know why I did it. Well, actually, I do know why I did it, and I'm going to pass the buck here a little bit, because I've never done this before. And I don't know if I just got carried away because it was so nice outside, but Billy was saying to me, why didn't you put them outside? It's a lovely sunny day. They'd look great in that corner. Now, normally I would ignore those comments, but I chose not to. And the next day it was lovely and sunny, and I thought, actually, maybe Billy's right, and I put them outside. Yeah, it wasn't so right by the end of the day.
No. So should you just stick to your guns?
I know. Note to self.
Yeah.
Do it the way you always do it, and the way that you've been taught to do it by because my mum and dad were gardeners. So mum used to have mum had the front garden, and she would grow all the flowers. Dad had the rear garden, and he would grow all the vegetables and fruits. So I totally knew what I was doing. And you know, when you just do something sometimes, and afterwards you go, why did I do that? I just know I should never have done that. I was so frustrated with myself. So it's trust your own judgment as well sometimes.
Absolutely, definitely. So then another good one is, what is another way that you can add to zones then, Perrie? What could you do?
I think that's what we said when we talk about adding zones and putting some zing in your garden. It's about, perhaps you don't have that big garden, or some ground areas in your garden are warmer than others. So the ground warms and plants start to return as well in some areas too. So you might have something that you could add to your garden that impacts different areas in particular. So some plants don't need sunshine, others do. So it's about understanding those zones in your garden for your enjoyment as well, or for enticing photos and enthusiastic viewers. We've talked about that as well, about making it really nice and appealing. So when we talk about zones, it's about the bits at the front of your house as well, your curb appeal. So architectural plants are really nice. So stipas, acanthias, things that are big, that are going to be really colourful. You know, you get all the lovely ones that are deep reds at the moment. You get the nice vibrant greens and yellows. Those are really easy to look after, but they give a really good focus point. I've got that on my deck in one of my plants of 3. So I've got one of those in a larger pot, and then I've got smaller pots with the pansies and petunias in them. So again, it's just about making sure that you bring it together and make it look nice. So it's about focal and visual. Even that little tip I gave about just the lights on that tree, just the difference that it's made. So, you know, it might be that your viewers don't necessarily come in the daytime, even though nights are lighter. You know, some people work different shift patterns, etc., and they might only be able to come, say, 9 o'clock when the sun's kind of gone down, 8:30. There's a good way of brightening it up. So that's a really nice way to do it. Zoning also helps make your garden appear larger. So, you know, if you've got a small area, having certain zones So maybe you've got a seating area. If you've got a courtyard, say, you've got a nice seating area, and then you've got a nice plant area, and then maybe you've got a mirror or something in another corner. All of a sudden, you've got all these different things, and it gives the illusion of space, light, and colour. So that's why zoning is really important when you do things as well. It goes back to my earlier point when I said about doing things in 3s, 5s, and 7s. If you just put one something somewhere, it almost has no impact, does it? And it just kind of looks a bit lonely. And then you think, well, there's no space here to have put 2, 3, 5, 7, you know, so that's something to think about. Again, a lot of the beds in my garden at the moment are quite bare, so they're a bit sparse after winter time. You've maybe still got all your twigs, etc., from last year's plants, but look at dividing large clumps as well. So if you do have something that is evergreen and grows all the year round, and it's maybe quite a large plant, there's nothing to stop you digging a part of that out and moving it along the bed. So again, you've got maybe making it look a bit more even and equal, but instantly impacting. So again, it's not costing you anything. You're just dividing up what you've already grown. So that's something to think about. Crane bills are good for that. Cosmea is good for that. But there's multiple things that you can plug into the gaps in your garden. And again, you can buy, you're getting 3 for £6, £7 in B&Ms at the moment. Okay, they might look small just now, but they're giving you a little bit of impact and they will grow. So again, it's about budding that out. It's also careful not to overdo it. So when you buy smaller plants, you kind of see the size that they are and you put them in and you think, oh, it doesn't look much, I'll stick another one beside that. But remember, it's going to keep growing. And then what will happen is it will be crowded and then you're going to spoil that look completely. So that's something to think about as well. So if you're doing multiples, just be mindful of actually reading the labels and how much is this going to grow? What size is it going to become? And think about planting it when it is that size rather than the little bud you're seeing just now. That's a big tip.
Absolutely.
Because when I first started gardening and I was growing my own petunia seeds and things like that, I used to put them in the pots and in my baskets. And I'd maybe put 6 or 7 in one basket. And then actually, once they started to grow, you were having to take them out because you couldn't get enough water in. So they started to die because they couldn't really grow and bloom as much as they could because they were stifling each other. So that's something to be mindful of. Just think about the things that make your garden more enjoyable. What would you enjoy? What have you seen? So again, it talks about the seating area. So when we gave that example of the courtyard, for instance, Sophie, have a little seating corner. It's great to have a table there as well. Even putting a lovely little pot on a table, I've done that, and it looks really nice. It will make it feel like your garden's somewhere you want to meditate and love and enjoy and just be alone in. And that's really important as well, because people want that solitude sometimes in their lives too. So it's great to have a wee place where maybe they can sit and enjoy designing that area, sit on a weekend, read a book, have a nice glass of wine, have a Cosmos cocktail, just depends what you want, depending what you fancy. But it's nice to kind of make those corners welcoming. You get outside rugs now, that's always really nice. I've got a few of those in my garden. And again, it just gives you that little cozy feel. So you almost feel like you've got another room outside. And I think if you've created that, not only do you enjoy it, but it's actually adding value in the eyes of someone who's potentially viewing the property. You know, we're doing these tips for people who are not selling, but we're also doing these tips to help people maximize if they are thinking of selling and what is going to be attractive to their viewers. So that's something that really does go down well with people when they can see that outside space. So injecting some zing with feature plants, garden furniture, updating your wardrobe as we would at home, you do the same to your garden. So
very true, actually. Yeah,
it's important to think about that. So just adding a few new pieces, rejuvenating that outside space, reinvigorating your enjoyment of it, but actually allowing other people to see just really how functional that outside space is a real big plus.
Absolutely. So
there's other things we have to think about here, because again, we're all out tidying the gardens. And I spoke about this on the spring campaign show, didn't I? Be mindful that we've got a lot of wildlife that are maybe nesting in our gardens at the moment, and not necessarily just nesting in maybe if you've got hedges or you've got big trees or whatever, but actually we've got corners of our garden perhaps that still have lots of leaves, twigs, etc. We've all had those high winds, haven't we? So it's kind of made a bit of a disaster area of some of our garden areas. So just be mindful if you're clearing that up, that wildlife might be in there. And you want to keep that wildlife, but you also want to summon the wildlife too, don't you? You want to bring things into your garden. How would we go about that, perhaps, Soph?
Yeah, absolutely. So there really isn't anything as wonderful as a kind of spring garden, and it's bursting with obviously the bird noises in the background and the buzzing with the bees. I even knew that when I was out viewing yesterday, and doing the video, and you could just hear the chirping in the background, and it's really uplifting. And as you know, as the waking up begins, there is different things that you can do to help create a thriving ecosystem for years to come. And again, this is something really important. If you've got the wee ones in the garden and you're doing activities with them, enlighten them in this as well. Yes, it can be fun, but also give them an insight into this and get them involved as well, and tell them, because again, they will take it on into later years. But certainly there is many different ways. So think about a regular supply of water. That is a godsend for birds, bees, especially if you've got frogs as well. Even whether it be, and you can make it a feature as well. It doesn't just need to be, you know, a bit of an eyesore. Make a feature out with it, whether it be if you've got maybe like an old Belfast sink and you want to do something coming with that, or is there a small pond or a bird bath? All work really well. Also, think about adding some stones to it as well, just to help the insects and draw those out.
And again, you can do that yourself, Sophie. You don't need to necessarily go into garden centres and spend lots of money. I love to feed the birds. So I've got coconut shells, I've got fat balls, I've got all the seeds and what have you. I've literally got about 6 things hung up. But I had in the past always had, you can go in and buy like these metal ones in the hang, but I don't know about anyone else, and if you're watching this, you probably would agree, but they go rusty, they go squint, the wind pulls them, they're everywhere, and then, you know, they get covered in bird poop and they don't look nice, and it's just not a nice feature. So I've got quite a handy husband, so I'm quite lucky there. But actually, Billy built me a bird feeder last year. He literally just went up to Buckhaven Supplies, building supplies, and got me a post and some concrete post fixer, fixed it into the garden. And then I went to B&M's and I got 6 hanging basket rails, but actually had birds on them, which was quite sweet. And basically staggered them around the post, put a nice bit of wood on the top so it looks like a bit of a feature, and all my little bits hung on that. That will last me forever. It'll never rot.
Yeah.
Eventually the post will come loose, but you know, it'll be there as long as probably I need it to be there. So there's nice ways that you can do it, and it's not like a repeat thing where every year you think, oh, it looks awful rusty this summer, I'm going to go and get a new one. But it's a real good way of bringing them into your garden, and I love it.
And especially as well, as you can say, that's got more of a sentimental value to it as well, because it's been made. So it adds that element to it as well.
It does. When you've done something like that in your garden too, if you've got viewers coming, they can see the love that you've put into the garden. And so actually, again, it's talking about that positive emotion that you spoke about, Sophie. It's not just the smells and the sounds, it's what they're seeing too. So it almost gives the vibe across to that individual that this has been cared for, this is a lovely home, they've loved it. So they're all positive things that makes that viewer feel, well, yeah, I'm quite liking it now as well, because all that positiveness that you're seeing as you go through it. So it's little things, but actually they're really positive impacts.
Absolutely, because it's mindset as well, isn't it? So definitely. So as well, think about making a mini flower meadow in perhaps a sunny spot of your outdoor space. Take out all plants and roots, sow a packet of meadow seed mix with a kind of one of the little fine tools, then use a rose head to water it. Then just watch it grow. Have the patience and watch it grow. Attract songbirds by putting out non-synthetic nesting materials. So you've got raw wool, you've got moss, you've got twigs, spiders' webs perhaps, seed fluff on a shed roof, because they can then all be used to help build nests so that then they can keep their eggs safely snug. And again, we're helping obviously with the summoning wildlife, and it creates a safe space for them as well.
And actually another good tip is the alpaca farm in the East Nook, they actually sell it so you can actually put it in your bird feeders. So the fat ball feeders that you get for your birds, they actually sell you the alpaca fluff, and you can put them in there and hang them on your feeder so the birds can take it. If you've got a dog that gets groomed, the dog hair, if you've got a cat that's hairy, when you brush them, you can clip them up as well. Just get a little wooden peg and clip them on your hangers or your fences, and the birds take them in to make their nests too. So again, you don't need to go out and spend money. You've probably got things like that at home.
Oh wow, did not know that. That is a top tip. Okay, brilliant. So then you and your outdoor space are, you know, being that warriors, if you like, in the fight to keep bumbles, birds, keeping it all alive. And the effort is truly worth the reward that you get watching those lovely little creatures flourish and flutter, and them enjoying your outdoor space just as much as you're enjoying your outdoor space as well. As you mentioned, Perry, it's all about sharing and caring. So you're
Yep.
sharing and caring your outdoor space with the wildlife. And as well, it is something, if you have younger children or even grandchildren, get them involved and start educating them as well. Definitely something to consider. Now, we did touch on it a wee bit, but you mentioned at one point, Perry, kind of blooming boxes and baskets. Tell me a bit more in details, because I'm sure you've got some top tips.
Oh, for me, they elevate everywhere in a garden. They absolutely do. And they're instant as well. So you could have a boring fence. Let's be honest, we're all thinking about painting the fences at this time of the year. So certainly that's one of my to-dos. So once you've painted your fence, it's going to look rejuvenated anyway. But actually, these little baskets hanging on them are just great. So you can do real good mix of bedding here as well, where you can make it nice. You can have them where they bloom up. You can have them where they spiral down. There's so many ways you can make it nice. That can happen from bulbs that you've bought, seeds that you've grown, flowers you can go to the supermarket and get. But they're really great for giving you some kind of tricks of how to make your garden look really appealing and cared for, but with instant. I had a client that I went to see 2 weeks ago who I then went to do the pre-portal yesterday. They took on board some of those tips that we were talking about. And actually, when I went to the house, I was like, wow, this looks fantastic now. And the video just looked great. Just little things that they did to change to add pops of colour. But it made such a big difference in the garden space. So really important to take those on, because they tips and tricks will give you the best results if you are thinking about selling as well. So it's really important to take that on board. But the first thing you need to look at is, what's the location? What is it that you're trying to do in the garden? What part of it? You know, when we're talking about the zoning. So, you know, is it a sunny spot you're trying to fill with something? Is it a shady spot? Is it the view that you're trying to create from the house, of the windows, from the patio? So these are all things that you need to think about, and all of the above things that we've talked about really will help that. You know, when we've talked about the seeding, the planting, the zoning, all those things come into that. But it helps you choose the perfect plants as well. So, you know, you want sun or shade lovers, you want tall, short, trailing, all the things that I said before. Ones that are drought tolerant as well, if it is in a hot area. So don't do what I did and put them in the sunshine when that really wasn't a good plan. So it's the little bits that you need to think about, and those can really make it effortless for you, not a lot of maintenance, but really pop the colour. This particular client as well, they had got all their garden furniture out because the weather's been fantastic this last week, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So they had their sun loungers in one corner, they had their seating area in another corner, they had their little plants everywhere, and it just looked fab. It looked like a holiday destination, the garden. And I just thought, oh, you know, I went into it and I thought, oh, I could just sit here and get a nice bottle of wine now, and just that'll be me. I'll be set for the day. It was just so lovely. And that's the kind of emotion that you want to create. Or you can have tea, coffee, cosmos, you know, it doesn't need to be wine. It could be whatever your choice, whatever your mix. But the point is that actually the zoning of it made it just fantastic. And by putting those little blooms here and there in those locations, just really did give that a big push and a big oomph to the garden. So that's definitely something for you to think about. And you get all different things. You get your trailers, as I said. So you're talking about your lobelias, etc. And they can look really lovely when they're hanging as well. Lots of different coloured ones you can get there. So something to think about in regards to how you want to do it, but also where in your garden you want to do it. So you want to use nice succulent plants that are going to be blooming. Cactines and alpines are great for areas that are kind of maybe shaded, where you're not looking to potentially give them lots of care. You might just need to weekly go out and just put a little bit of water in there, so it's not something you're having to do every day. But if you enjoy that daily watering routine, then you're going to be looking at traditional flowers, your petunias, your fuchsias, your geraniums. They're all the things I plant in my baskets, and those are the things that do need attention and care. But that's quite a nice thing to do at the end of the day. So I like to do that at the end of the day. It's been a busy day. I've been out, coming home, and it's just a bit of a relaxing 10 minutes in the garden, water everything, let it bloom, and just a satisfaction again, because then you go out the next day and it's looking much more sprucely. So those are things that you can do in those sunny ones, but they will need care and attention, as I say. But if you're too busy for potting, you can buy fabulous ready planted baskets as well. You don't need to necessarily do it all yourself. So they're not quite coming yet. There are some out there, but they're just full of pansies, or they're not a great array of colour, because it's still a bit cold yet. So I'd say a couple of weeks, really, maybe end of April, before you want to be putting your petunias, etc., outside. So that's something to think about. So you can do that in your baskets. You can do that on your boxes. Your boxes can hang on windowsills. They can go on walls. They can be balanced displays. One thing that I've seen quite often, I don't know if you've seen it if you've gone to beer gardens, Sophie, but a lot of people are using pallets.
Yes.
Them on their sides and putting like little bits underneath and putting plants in them. And actually, they're quite effective.
Yes.
But again, easy to do.
Mm-hmm,
Easy to get. They're cheap enough, but they're really great at fixing to a wall. So that's something different as well. If you've maybe got a courtyard area where you don't have that place on the floor to put everything, you can put it up as well. So that's something to think about. Just nice balanced displays that make sure that the sun and the water that they need can get to them. So again, if you are going to put things like that, you know, don't put it so high that you can't actually get to the top to water them, because they're not going to last very long. But also, when we talked about the vegetables, you can actually grow veg in these things as well. It doesn't necessarily all need to be flowers. So that's something to think about too. But window boxes, they're the more kind of modern, traditional thing, aren't they? So they're ready planted. You can do that, no problem. You can go down the traditional route. You can go a little bit quirky with regards to what I just described there. That's always a good way to do it. But the window boxes, you usually put cacti, you put ferns in there, because again, you'll only get sun maybe partially parts of the day. But you know, just have to think about that and be careful how you zone things. But you know, looking at how you're going to, where you're going to put the foliage, if it's green that you're after, or if it's masses of trailing flowers, where you're going to put those, and can they hang freely and grow freely? Again, be careful if you're putting things like ivy near walls and fences, because once they get a grip, they can be a bit tricky. But all of that can be really rewarding and make your garden just look beautiful. And I think that's what's going to appeal to your buyers, but also it's something that you as an individual can really enjoy as well, isn't it?
100%. Absolutely. So then, before we head off and potentially do some gardening, could spring gardening boost your home's value? That is ultimately the question here. If you're watching this and you're just looking to add, obviously, all of this to your property, you're not planning on selling, or actually if you are planning on selling, the question here, Perrie, is could spring gardening boost your home's value?
For me, I think values different ways, isn't it? Value is in monetary, but value also to you as the person who's living in that home, isn't it? So it kind of works in two ways. But I think a good day's planting, do a little bit of shopping, you're not spending a lot of money. It shows a sprinkle of love in your garden. You're reawakening everything in the garden, as we said earlier on. You're making it really appealing. You're making it bloom and look colourful. And actually, I think then you show an appreciation for your outdoor space. So for me, absolutely, it does add value to you to enjoy. But I believe it adds value as well, potentially, if you're selling, because what's then happening is you're attracting more viewers, which is giving you more foot traffic, which historically will bring you multiple offers, which adds value, because then you've got a good strong position then in regards to what you can negotiate, us as the agent working on your behalf. So for me, that definitely adds value, but it adds it in two different ways.
Perfect. So if you are planning to sell in spring, a mini garden makeover can add potentially thousands to your selling price. So if it is something you want to discuss in greater detail, if you have any questions, or even if you've got some hints and tips, if you're a keen gardener and you're watching this and you've got some hints and tips, feel free to put them in the comments. If you have any questions from us, put them in the comments, or even just message us on one of our pages and we will come back to you, or we can even get an agent to come out and rate your garden. So there we go. That's perfect. And thank you very much, Perrie. That was brilliant.
Thanks, Sophie. Have a great weekend, everyone. And as Sophie said, please do reach out. I could use some tips, because clearly I'm not totally green-fingered. Made some mistakes this year.
Yes. I need a book. Yes. Take care.